In a world where everyone is talking, posting, and broadcasting their every move, the most powerful thing you can do is the opposite. Say less. Silence has always been underestimated. People mistake it for weakness, for uncertainty, for having nothing to offer. But the truth? Silence is power. It's the space where your influence grows, where curiosity builds, and where your moves stay protected. The loudest person in the room might get attention, but the quiet one, the one who holds their words until the right moment, gets respect. Because mystery is magnetic. When you stop telling everyone what you're doing, you take back control. You decide what's revealed, when, and to whom. And in that choice lies an advantage most people will never understand. The power of mystery. Mystery is one of the most underestimated forms of power in our modern world. We live in an age of exposure, where people post their meals before they eat them, announce their plans before they begin them, and broadcast their achievements before they've even had the time to enjoy them. Everyone seems to believe that visibility equals strength, but those who truly understand influence know the opposite. What you keep to yourself is often far more powerful than what you reveal. Mystery changes the way people perceive you. When you hold back, you force others to fill in the blanks about who you are and what you're doing. And human nature being what it is, they'll often fill those blanks with assumptions that work in your favor. If you say little about your projects, people might imagine they're far more ambitious than they are. If you stay silent in a meeting, people may assume you're thinking more deeply than everyone else. This isn't deception. It's letting people's curiosity do the work for you. Consider historical figures known for their presence, leaders, entrepreneurs, artists. Many of them understood that the less they spoke about their personal moves, the more others were drawn to them. Think of someone like Steve Jobs in the early days of Apple. His product launches were events surrounded by secrecy, and that secrecy created an energy of anticipation and respect. Or in politics, figures who carefully control what they reveal command more attention, because every word feels intentional, measured, and worth listening to. But mystery isn't only about public perception, it's also about protection. The more you tell people about your goals, the more vulnerable you become to interference, criticism, and sabotage. Not everyone who listens to your plans wants you to succeed. Some will quietly compete, others will deliberately place obstacles in your path, and a few will attempt to discredit you before your idea has the chance to take shape. By holding back details, you protect yourself from these forces. You deny your rivals the information they need to get ahead of you. It's also about preserving your energy. Oversharing can lead to emotional exhaustion because you end up defending, explaining, or justifying your choices to people who were never meant to influence them. Every time you explain your vision too soon, you risk diluting your motivation. There's a psychological phenomenon where speaking about your goals gives you a false sense of accomplishment. Your brain rewards you as if you've already done the work. Mystery eliminates that trap. It keeps your focus where it belongs, on execution, not explanation. Philosophically, mystery aligns with the wisdom of restraint. Ancient Stoics understood the value of self-control, not just in actions, but in words. They knew that strength was measured by what you could choose not to reveal. Epictetus once said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." In other words, you don't need to correct every misconception or prove every point. Sometimes letting others wonder is the most powerful move you can make. Mystery also magnifies your results. Imagine two scenarios. In the first, you tell everyone about the big promotion you're aiming for months in advance, and when it happens, people simply nod. They saw it coming. In the second, you say nothing, work in silence, and suddenly appear in that new role. The impact is far greater because the result arrives without warning. Surprise makes success memorable. Of course, mystery is not about shutting yourself off from the world. It's about balance. Share enough to build trust and connection, but keep the core of your plans guarded until they're ready to be revealed. Not every detail of your life needs an audience. By mastering this balance, you create an aura of confidence and control. People respect those who aren't desperate for validation. In a culture addicted to noise, mystery is your quiet advantage. It forces the world to lean in, to wonder, to respect your space. And when you finally choose to speak, your words will carry weight. Not because they're louder, but because they're rare. That is the true power of mystery. Influence without overexposure, authority without shouting, and strength without surrendering your privacy. Control the narrative. When you speak less, you hold the reins of your own story. In a world where everyone is quick to interpret, judge, and even twist what you say, controlling the narrative is not a luxury, it's survival. The moment you start explaining every detail of your plans, you hand over the power to others. You allow them to reframe your words, to reshape your intentions, and sometimes even to weaponize them against you. But when you speak sparingly and with intention, you decide exactly what version of your story is told, and when it's told. That's the difference between being in control and being controlled. Controlling the narrative doesn't mean being manipulative or deceptive. It means understanding that not every truth needs to be told in real time. There's a difference between transparency and vulnerability. Transparency means you reveal what is necessary to create understanding. Vulnerability means you reveal so much that others can use it to harm you. The mentally strong choose transparency with precision, revealing only what reinforces the direction they've chosen for themselves. They understand that timing is everything. A message delivered too early can weaken its impact, but the same message delivered at the right moment can shift perceptions entirely. History is full of examples of leaders and innovators who mastered this art. Think of great negotiators, business strategists, or public figures who seem to always have the upper hand. They didn't do it by explaining themselves endlessly. They did it by choosing their words and moments carefully, ensuring that what they revealed served a purpose. Even in personal relationships, this skill matters. When you don't feel the need to explain every move, you leave space for others to form impressions based on your results, rather than your intentions. And impressions based on results tend to be far more favorable. Another advantage of controlling the narrative is that it prevents others from writing it for you. In the absence of information, people speculate. This can seem dangerous, but it can work in your favor when you control the small fragments they do receive. By shaping those fragments strategically, you influence the way people interpret your actions. For example, if you're working on a project but don't announce the details, you might simply share that you're preparing something important. This leaves people curious, but without enough information to undermine you. The curiosity works for you, not against you. This approach also protects your mental energy. The more you talk, the more you invite questions, opinions, and unsolicited advice. Not all advice is harmful, but too much of it can cloud your judgment and weaken your resolve. By keeping your circle of informed individuals small, you reduce noise and maintain clarity. You hear only from those whose perspectives truly matter. and this keeps your focus sharp. Philosophically, this ties into the Stoic idea of controlling what is within your power and letting go of the rest. You cannot control how people interpret every detail of your life, but you can control what details you make available in the first place. This gives you a significant advantage. You decide which truths to reveal, how to frame them, and when to deliver them for maximum impact. In practical terms, controlling the narrative can be as simple as pausing before you speak, asking yourself, does this need to be shared right now? Will sharing it serve my long-term goals, or will it only satisfy a temporary urge to be understood? More often than not, the strongest move is to say less and let your actions tell the story in their own time. The beauty of this approach is that it keeps you adaptable. When you haven't committed publicly to a specific plan, you can change direction without losing credibility. People can't accuse you of going back on your word if they never knew exactly what your word was. That flexibility is invaluable in a world that changes quickly and unpredictably. In the end, controlling the narrative is about discipline. It's about resisting the pull to over-explain, to seek validation through constant updates, or to answer every question in detail. When you master this, you become the author of your life's story, not just the main character reacting to someone else's version. And that is a position of real, lasting power. Silence as a strategy. Silence has always been misunderstood. To most people, it looks like hesitation, passivity, or weakness. In reality, silence is one of the most deliberate and potent strategies you can use, if you know how to wield it. When you choose not to speak, you are not surrendering control, you are claiming it. You are creating space for observation, for gathering information, and for protecting your position. In a world that rewards speed and noise, silence slows the game down, giving you time to think while others rush into mistakes. Using silence as a strategy starts with a shift in mindset. You must see silence not as the absence of action, but as action itself. When you refrain from revealing your plans, you deny competitors, critics, and opportunists the chance to act against you before you're ready. How many times have great ideas been stolen, projects undermined, or opportunities blocked simply because someone shared too much too soon? When you speak less, you keep your work protected until it's strong enough to stand on its own. Silence is also a tool for psychological advantage. People are deeply uncomfortable with it. In conversations, they often rush to fill quiet moments with words, revealing more than they intended. This is why silence is such a powerful weapon in high-stakes environments, negotiations, interviews, business deals. When you remain silent after someone speaks, they may interpret your pause as disagreement, disinterest, or deep consideration, prompting them to elaborate, justify, or even make concessions without you saying a single word. It's equally effective in protecting your emotional energy. Words are costly. Every explanation, every justification takes something from you. By choosing silence in situations where speaking would drain you, you preserve your strength for the moments when your voice truly matters. This is especially true when dealing with criticism or provocation. Responding to every insult or rumor is a waste of focus and dignity. Often, silence delivers a clearer, stronger message than any defense could. It says, "Your words do not deserve my energy." History and philosophy back this up. The Stoics practiced restraint in speech, understanding that once words are spoken, they cannot be taken back. Marcus Aurelius wrote about the power of self-control in communication, noting that silence can keep you free from unnecessary conflict. Military leaders have long used the same principle. never revealing their full strategy until the decisive moment, letting the enemy move blindly while they prepare. In daily life, silence can be the difference between being underestimated and being respected. When you resist the urge to overshare, you create an air of composure. People sense that you are intentional, that you don't speak unless you have something worth saying. This alone can elevate the way others treat you. But strategic silence is not about disappearing. It's not about avoiding engagement or isolating yourself. It's about knowing when speaking serves your purpose and when it doesn't. The key is intentionality. Silence without purpose is just passivity. Silence with purpose is power. This means reading the room, recognizing when information should be held back, and being comfortable with the tension that quiet can create. The more you practice this, the more you'll notice its benefits. You'll find yourself making fewer impulsive promises, revealing fewer weaknesses, and avoiding situations where your words could be twisted. You'll notice that people start leaning in when you do speak, because your words have become rare, and rare things are valued. Silence is not the absence of communication, it's a form of it. And when used as a strategy, it gives you control over the flow of information, the pace of interaction, and the perception others have of you. In a world obsessed with speaking first, strategic silence allows you to listen, learn, and strike at exactly the right moment. That is not weakness. That is mastery. Let your results speak. In a culture obsessed with making announcements, there's something undeniably powerful about doing the work in silence and letting the results reveal themselves. The truth is, every time you talk about what you're going to do before you've done it, you risk diminishing its impact. Words can create the illusion of progress, but real progress is built through action, not discussion. When you let your results speak for you, you remove the need for convincing, persuading, or defending. The proof is right there, undeniable, for everyone to see. One of the reasons this approach works so well is because it bypasses the resistance and doubt that often meet big declarations. When you announce your intentions, you give others a chance to question them, criticize them, or quietly root against them. And whether you like it or not, some will. But when you move quietly, without broadcasting every step, you give them nothing to resist until it's too late. By the time they see the outcome, it's already a reality. There's also a psychological phenomenon at play here. When you speak about your goals too soon, your brain rewards you as if you've already accomplished them. You get a temporary hit of satisfaction from talking about what you will do, which can actually reduce the drive to follow through. High achievers understand this and avoid wasting that energy. They channel it into the work itself, saving the satisfaction for the moment the goal is truly achieved. Think of an athlete who trains out of the spotlight only to dominate on game day, or a business owner who works quietly on a new product, unveiling it only when it's perfected and ready to launch. The impact of their work is multiplied because it arrives without warning. The element of surprise turns accomplishment into a statement, one that no amount of self-promotion could match. Letting your results speak also builds credibility over time. People learn to take you seriously because they see a pattern. You don't just talk, you deliver. Each achievement reinforces your reputation, and soon you won't need to convince anyone of your capability. They'll know. Your silence before the fact becomes part of your identity. When you say nothing, people assume you're working on something important. From a Stoic perspective, this is the embodiment of the philosophy's core principle: focus on what is within your control. You can't control whether people believe in your vision, but you can control the work you put in to make it real. You can't control how they react to your announcements, but you can control the quality and timing of what you reveal. Letting results speak doesn't mean you can never share your progress. It means you share with purpose. You reveal milestones strategically when doing so serves your growth or inspires others, not simply to feed your ego or prove your worth. This requires patience, restraint, and the confidence to let your work speak louder than your words. And here's the ultimate advantage. Results silence critics in a way arguments never can. You can debate words, but you can't debate reality. When your actions produce visible, undeniable outcomes, even those who doubted you are forced to acknowledge them. At that point, your success becomes the message, and it's far more persuasive than any speech could be. In the end, letting your results speak is about playing the long game. It's about valuing execution over exposition, substance over show, and outcomes over opinions. It's about knowing that the quiet work you put in today will speak volumes tomorrow, and when it does, the world will listen. Guard your emotional energy. Your emotional energy is one of the most valuable resources you have, and like any resource, it's limited. Every conversation you engage in, every explanation you give, every argument you entertain takes something from your mental reserves. Most people don't realize how much energy they waste by constantly sharing their plans, defending their decisions, or responding to unnecessary criticism. Over time, this drains focus, motivation, and the ability to think clearly. Guarding your emotional energy means protecting it with the same vigilance you would use to protect your time, your finances, or your physical health. One of the fastest ways to deplete this energy is to overshare. Every time you tell someone about your plans, you open the door to opinions, some well-meaning, others not. Even positive feedback can subtly shift your focus away from doing the work towards seeking approval. Negative feedback, on the other hand, can trigger doubt or defensiveness, pulling you into mental battles that have nothing to do with moving forward. By keeping your intentions private, you shield yourself from that noise and preserve the clarity you need to execute. Guarding your emotional energy also means being selective about whose voices you allow into your inner world. Not every friend, co-worker, or family member needs to be involved in your decision-making. Some people will drain you without even realizing it, by questioning your every move or reminding you of every possible risk. Others may intentionally chip away at your confidence because your progress challenges their comfort. If you don't set boundaries, you'll find yourself spending more time managing their reactions than building your own future. Another hidden drain is the need to constantly explain yourself. When you feel compelled to justify every action, you hand over control of your energy to whoever is asking the questions. This doesn't mean you become cold or dismissive. It means you learn to discern when a conversation is worth having and when silence serves you better. Sometimes, the most respectful answer to yourself is to simply say, "I'm not ready to talk about that yet," and leave it there. From a Stoic perspective, guarding your emotional energy is about focusing on what's within your control and letting go of the rest. You can't stop people from having opinions, but you can stop inviting them into your decision-making process. You can't control whether someone misunderstands you, but you can choose not to exhaust yourself correcting every misconception. Marcus Aurelius put it simply, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Protecting your emotional energy is exactly that, realizing that your mental space belongs to you, not to anyone else. Practically, this means setting clear boundaries about when and how you engage with others, Limit exposure to people and situations that drain you, and invest more time with those who genuinely uplift and inspire you. Create routines that recharge you: exercise, reading, meditation, or even solitude. These aren't luxuries, they're essential maintenance for your mental resilience. The more you guard your emotional energy, the more you'll notice its impact. You'll have more focus for meaningful work, more patience in stressful situations, and more clarity in your decision-making. You'll find that you no longer waste days recovering from unnecessary emotional battles. Instead, you'll direct that energy toward building the life you actually want. In the end, guarding your emotional energy is about self-respect. It's the recognition that your mental and emotional reserves are not infinite, and they should not be spent carelessly. Protect them fiercely, and you'll not only preserve your strength, you'll multiply it. And when others wonder how you manage to stay calm, focused, and consistent, the answer will be simple. You stopped giving your energy to things that don't deserve it. The value of listening. More. Listening is one of the most underrated skills in the modern world. Everyone wants to be heard, but few are willing to truly hear. And yet, those who listen more than they speak often hold the greatest advantage. Not because they say less, but because when they do speak, their words carry more weight. Listening gives you information, insight, and perspective that constant talking can never provide. It's the skill that allows you to understand situations deeply before acting and to uncover truths that others reveal without realizing it. When you listen more, you gather details that most people miss. In conversations, people often reveal more than they intend, especially when they're filling silence. They share their fears, their motivations, their weaknesses, all without being prompted, because silence makes them uncomfortable. The disciplined listener knows how to use that discomfort to their advantage, letting others speak freely while quietly taking mental notes. Every piece of information you absorb becomes a tool you can use when the time is right, whether in negotiations, personal relationships, or strategic decision-making. Listening also builds trust. When people feel heard, they feel valued, and that strengthens your connections. You don't have to agree with everything you hear, but giving someone your full attention communicates respect. And respect opens doors that force never could. People are far more willing to support, cooperate, and share information with those who make them feel understood. In this way, listening is not just a passive act, it's an investment in influence. From a strategic standpoint, listening more than you speak helps you control the flow of information. The less you reveal about yourself while learning about others, the greater your advantage. You're not giving away your position, your plans, or your vulnerabilities, but you're gaining insight into theirs. This creates a subtle but powerful imbalance. You know more about them than they know about you, which means you can navigate interactions from a position of strength. There's also an emotional benefit to listening. It trains you to be present. In a world full of distractions, truly focusing on someone without thinking about your reply or checking your phone is rare. This kind of presence not only improves your relationships, but also strengthens your own discipline. You learn patience, self-control, and the ability to resist the urge to fill every silence with words. Philosophically, listening aligns with Stoic principles. The Stoics valued observation and understanding over impulsive reaction. Epictetus reminded us that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so that we might listen twice as much as we speak. By listening more, you reduce the risk of speaking in ways that later need to be corrected. You protect yourself from saying things you'll regret, and ensure that when you do speak, your words are informed and intentional. In practice, developing the habit of listening more requires conscious effort. Start by asking questions that encourage others to share, then resist the urge to interrupt. Focus not only on their words, but also on their tone, body language, and what they choose not to say. Sometimes the silence between their sentences says more than the words themselves. Over time, you'll notice a shift. People will begin to see you as someone wise, thoughtful, and worth trusting, not because you always have the loudest opinion, but because you consistently demonstrate that you understand. And when you do choose to speak, people will lean in, knowing that your words come from a place of consideration, not impulse. The value of listening more is that it quietly positions you above the noise. While others waste energy trying to be heard, you're gathering insight, building relationships, and strengthening your position without even raising your voice. And in a world where information is power, the best way to gain it is simple. Speak less, listen more. Avoiding envy and resistance. One of the least talked about dangers of openly sharing your plans, goals, or progress is the silent resistance it can trigger in others. Human nature is complex. While some people will genuinely want the best for you, others will feel a subtle sense of envy when they see you moving forward. And envy, even when hidden behind polite smiles or casual words, can turn into resistance. It can appear as small discouragements, quiet sabotage, or behind-the-scenes actions that make your path harder than it needs to be. When you keep your progress private, you remove a major trigger for this kind of reaction. If people don't know exactly how well you're doing or how far you've come, they can't measure themselves against you in a way that sparks competition or jealousy. Privacy gives you the freedom to move forward without inviting unnecessary comparisons. It keeps your relationships cleaner, your work less vulnerable, and your mental space less cluttered with other people's projections. Envy is rarely about you personally. It's about what you represent. When someone sees you taking risks they won't take, building discipline they haven't built, or making sacrifices they're unwilling to make, it can highlight their own inaction. That discomfort often turns into resistance, whether intentional or not. They might question your decisions, discourage you from aiming too high, or subtly point out all the reasons you might fail. This is not always done out of malice. It's often a defense mechanism to protect their own self-image. But if you're not careful, it can influence your mindset and slow your momentum. By staying quiet about your exact progress, you avoid becoming a constant mirror for other people's insecurities. You also avoid giving potential competitors or critics the information they could use to get ahead of you. This isn't about paranoia, it's about being strategic. Not everyone needs to know your timeline, your milestones, or your next steps. The fewer details you share, the fewer opportunities there are for interference. Privacy also protects you from premature resistance in professional settings. In workplaces or business ventures, sharing your ideas too early can lead to pushback before you've had a chance to fully develop them. Colleagues might question your direction, managers might redirect your resources, or competitors might take your concept and run with it. But when you work quietly until your project is strong enough to withstand criticism, you face far less resistance and far more respect. From a Stoic perspective, this aligns with the idea of focusing on your own path without being swayed by the opinions or actions of others. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The tranquility that comes when you stop caring what they say, or think, or do, only what you do." Avoiding envy and resistance is exactly that. It's removing yourself from the unnecessary weight of other people's reactions so you can focus on execution. There's also a personal benefit. Without the constant noise of comparison or opposition, you can think more clearly and act more decisively. You're no longer editing your moves to fit someone else's comfort level. You're free to take bold steps without worrying about how they'll be received. And when your results finally speak for themselves, those who might have resisted you earlier are often forced to acknowledge your success, or at the very least, accept it. Avoiding envy and resistance isn't about hiding forever. It's about timing your reveals for maximum impact and minimal interference. It's about understanding that the fewer obstacles you allow into your path, especially those born from other people's insecurities, the faster and smoother your journey will be. And sometimes, the best way to do that is to let your silence clear the way before your achievements make the noise. Discipline over impulse. In a world that rewards instant sharing, one of the strongest displays of self-control is the ability to keep something to yourself. Discipline over impulse means resisting that urge to announce your every plan, defend your every move, or seek quick validation for your ideas. It's the deliberate choice to act with patience instead of chasing the fleeting satisfaction of being noticed. And make no mistake, this is a skill. It requires strength to stay silent when you're excited, to keep working when no one is watching, and to trust that the right time to speak will come without forcing it. Impulse thrives on emotion. You land a new opportunity, and you want to tell everyone. You start a new project, and you want the world to know. The rush of sharing feels good in the moment. It gives you a quick hit of approval, a few encouraging words, maybe even admiration. But that high is temporary, and often it comes at a cost. Once your plans are public, you've invited the weight of opinions, expectations, and possible interference. Discipline teaches you to protect the fragile early stages of an idea, knowing that it will grow stronger when it's nurtured in silence. Choosing discipline over impulse also strengthens your focus. Every time you resist the urge to broadcast your next step, you reinforce your ability to keep your attention where it belongs, on the work itself. This is one of the most underrated benefits of restraint. It prevents you from getting distracted by reactions and forces you to measure progress by what you've accomplished, not by how much attention you've received. Over time, this mental muscle becomes invaluable. You stop chasing quick rewards and start building something that lasts. From a psychological perspective, this approach protects you from the premature reward trap. Research shows that talking about your goals can trick your brain into feeling as though you've already achieved them, which can lower your motivation to keep going. When you keep your plans to yourself, you maintain the tension between where you are and where you want to be, a tension that fuels sustained action. Philosophically, discipline over impulse aligns perfectly with Stoic thought. The Stoics taught that emotions are not to be suppressed, but to be governed. Just because you feel the urge to speak doesn't mean you must act on it. Seneca once wrote, "It is quality rather than quantity that matters." The same applies to your words. What you say should be deliberate, not a reaction to a passing mood or moment. Practically, this discipline shows up in small, daily choices. You pause before posting that update. You wait to share your win until the ink is dry and the outcome is secure. You decline to answer probing questions with full detail, offering only what's necessary and nothing more. These choices might seem small, but collectively, they build a life where your words are intentional and your actions speak far louder. The beauty of discipline over impulse is that it builds trust in yourself. You prove again and again that you are not ruled by fleeting emotion. You are guided by a long-term vision. You become someone who can hold a secret, protect a plan, and work steadily toward a goal without needing constant validation. And when you finally choose to reveal what you've been working on, it will land with far greater impact, because it will be complete, undeniable, and entirely yours. In the end, discipline over impulse is about control. Control over your time, your focus, and your destiny. It's the refusal to let temporary feelings dictate permanent outcomes. And in a noisy, impulsive world, that kind of control is not just rare, it's powerful. Freedom through privacy. Privacy is often misunderstood as secrecy, as if keeping parts of your life to yourself is something to be ashamed of. In reality, privacy is one of the purest forms of freedom you can give yourself. It's the ability to live, work, and make choices without the constant pressure of outside expectations, opinions, or premature judgment. When you protect your privacy, you protect your ability to change direction, to experiment, and to grow at your own pace without being watched, measured, or critiqued at every turn. The problem with making your life an open book is that once people know your every move, they begin to form expectations you may not want to meet. If you share your plans publicly and later realize you want to pivot, you might feel trapped by the need to save face. Privacy frees you from this. It gives you the space to adapt without the weight of explaining yourself. You can try something, fail quietly, adjust, and try again without the world knowing about your missteps. That freedom is invaluable because growth is rarely a straight line. Privacy also removes the constant need for approval. When you're not broadcasting every step, you're not seeking constant validation. This shifts your focus from performing for others to building for yourself. You stop thinking about how your actions will be perceived and start thinking about how they will actually work. That mental shift allows you to take bolder, more authentic steps because you're not editing yourself for an audience. From a practical standpoint, privacy protects you from unnecessary interference. The fewer people who know your strategies, your weaknesses, and your timelines, the harder it is for anyone to get in your way. This doesn't mean living in isolation. It means choosing who gets access to the details of your life. Just as you wouldn't give strangers the keys to your home, you shouldn't give everyone access to the inner workings of your mind and plans. There's also a psychological calm that comes with privacy. When you keep certain parts of your life for yourself, you reduce the noise around you. You're less exposed to opinions that could derail your confidence and less distracted by comparisons. This quiet space allows you to think more clearly, to trust your instincts, and to make decisions based on what's right for you, not on what will get the best reaction. Philosophically, privacy is aligned with the Stoic principle of self-governance. The Stoics believed that true freedom comes from within and that it's rooted in the ability to live according to your own values without being swayed by the crowd. Privacy is a modern expression of that idea. It's how you create the conditions to live your life on your own terms. The beauty of privacy is that it can coexist with openness where it matters. You can still share joy, connect deeply with others, and celebrate milestones. But you choose what to share, when to share it, and with whom. That choice is where the power lies. Privacy is not about cutting people off. It's about curating your life in a way that keeps you free from the constant pull of outside control. In the end, freedom through privacy is about reclaiming ownership of your life. It's about remembering that you don't owe the world a play-by-play of your journey. You owe yourself the space to live it fully, without the weight of an audience on your back. And in that space, you'll find a deeper peace, a stronger focus, and the ability to move through life with a quiet confidence that needs no explanation. Long-term protection. Silence and discretion are not just short-term tactics. They are long-term safeguards for your peace, your opportunities, and your relationships. When you consistently control what you reveal, you create a buffer between yourself and the unpredictable reactions of the world. Over time, that buffer becomes a protective layer that shields you from unnecessary conflict, exploitation, and emotional wear. It's the difference between living reactively, constantly putting out fires caused by your own overexposure, and living proactively, where you choose what enters your life and what stays out. Long-term protection begins with recognizing that not all damage happens immediately. Sometimes the consequences of oversharing don't surface until months or even years later. A detail you casually mention today can resurface at the wrong time, in the wrong place, and in the wrong hands. Maybe it's a piece of personal history, a work-related plan, or a vulnerability you thought you could trust someone with. Once it's out, you can't control where it goes. Maintaining a degree of privacy means there's simply less ammunition for others to misuse. It also preserves relationships in ways people often overlook. Not everyone in your life needs to know every detail of your struggles, goals, or decisions. Oversharing can sometimes put strain on relationships, not because the other person has bad intentions, but because you've invited them into a space where they feel the need to have an opinion. They might give advice you didn't ask for, feel disappointed when your plans change, or misinterpret your choices altogether. By keeping certain things to yourself until the time is right, you protect those relationships from unnecessary tension. Long-term protection also safeguards opportunities. The truth is, many plans fail not because of poor execution, but because they were exposed too soon. When people know what you're working on, they can move ahead of you, block you, or subtly shift the environment in ways that make your path harder. In competitive spaces, whether business, creative industries, or even personal networks, early exposure can be the death of an idea. Silence keeps your opportunities intact until you're ready to act from a position of strength. From a Stoic perspective, long-term protection is about building a life that is resilient to outside forces. The Stoics taught that peace comes from controlling what is within your power and creating distance between yourself and what can harm you. Choosing silence is one of the simplest yet most effective ways to create that distance. It means you're not constantly giving others access to the most sensitive parts of your life. There's also an emotional dimension to this kind of protection. The more you practice discretion, the less you're drawn into unnecessary emotional drama. You're not constantly defending yourself, managing others' expectations, or cleaning up misunderstandings caused by speaking too soon. Instead, you can focus your emotional energy where it matters, on the work, the people, and the goals that align with your values. In the long run, this approach builds a reputation that works in your favor. People begin to see you as someone measured, trustworthy, and difficult to read in the best possible way. They respect that you don't spill everything you know, and as a result, they're more likely to trust you with sensitive information themselves. This trust can open doors that constant talkers never get to walk through. Long-term protection isn't about living in fear or hiding from the world. It's about playing the long game with your life and understanding that the less you expose without reason, the more control you have over how your story unfolds. Over years, that discipline compounds into a life with fewer regrets, fewer avoidable conflicts, and far more freedom to move on your own terms. Silence in negotiations. Silence is one of the most underused yet devastatingly effective tools in any negotiation. Most people think that the person who speaks the most has the upper hand, but in reality, the opposite is often true. The person who can stay quiet, control their impulses, and let the other side speak first often walks away with the better outcome. Negotiations are as much a psychological game as they are a discussion of facts and terms, and silence tilts the psychology in your favor. The reason silence is so powerful in negotiations is simple. People are deeply uncomfortable with it. When there's a pause in conversation, most feel compelled to fill it, and in doing so, they often reveal more than they intended, offering extra details, making concessions they didn't plan to, or exposing their true priorities. The negotiator who can sit in that silence, steady and calm, gains an invaluable edge. You're not just waiting for words, you're gathering intelligence. This tactic works because silence creates pressure. Imagine stating your terms, then stopping. No elaboration, no justification, just quiet. The other side now has to respond, but they're doing so in a space you control. That pause feels longer to them than it does to you, and their instinct will be to bridge the gap by talking. Many times, they'll lower their demands, sweeten the deal, or reveal their bottom line before you've even made a counteroffer. Silence also projects confidence. When you don't rush to defend your position or oversell your offer, you signal that you believe in its value. You're showing that you don't need to convince. You know what you bring to the table. This subtle confidence can make the other party question their own position, wondering if they've underestimated your strength. From a Stoic standpoint, silence in negotiation aligns perfectly with the philosophy of self-control. It's about not letting emotion, whether excitement, anxiety, or impatience, push you into speaking too soon. The Stoics taught that mastery of the self leads to mastery of situations, and negotiation is a perfect example. By controlling your urge to fill the air with words, you keep control of the exchange itself. There's also a protective element to using silence here. The more you talk, the more you risk revealing your own priorities, weaknesses, or limitations. In the heat of a negotiation, even small slips can be costly. Silence ensures you only give away what you choose, when you choose. To use silence effectively in negotiations, you need preparation and discipline. You must know your goals, your walkaway point, and your non-negotiables before you enter the conversation. That way, you're not scrambling for words to fill the quiet. You're allowing space for the other side to reveal themselves while you remain steady. Practice helps here. Get comfortable with holding eye contact during pauses, nodding slowly, or simply letting a few seconds pass before speaking. What feels like a long, awkward gap to them will feel like controlled composure to you. In high-stakes situations, business deals, salary discussions, conflict resolution, silence can be the moment where the tide turns in your favor. It's not passive, it's active restraint, a deliberate tool to make others move before you do. And when used well, it turns negotiations from a back-and-forth exchange into a dance you lead without ever rushing your steps. Ultimately, silence in negotiations is about power. The power to listen more than you speak. The power to let others reveal their hands before you show yours. And the power to prove that in the most important conversations, the person who talks the least often leaves with the most. When silence speaks louder. There are moments in life when silence doesn't just complement your words, it replaces them entirely, carrying a weight no speech could match. In these moments, silence becomes the message. It's not an absence of communication. It's communication in its purest, most concentrated form. Used wisely, it can assert authority, demand respect, and leave an impression that lingers far longer than anything you could have said. Sometimes silence speaks louder because words would dilute the power of the moment. Imagine someone attacking your character with baseless accusations. Your first instinct might be to defend yourself, to explain, to argue. But in doing so, you legitimize their attack by engaging with it. Remaining silent, holding your composure, and refusing to give their words the validation of a response sends a clearer message. You are not worth my energy. That quiet refusal often cuts deeper than any rebuttal could. Silence can also amplify presence. In leadership, the person who can stand in a room and command attention without saying a word demonstrates a level of self-possession that's rare. People are drawn to that kind of composure because it signals inner strength. It tells them that you're confident enough to let others speak first, confident enough not to rush to prove yourself, and confident enough to let your actions carry your message. In conflict, silence can be a powerful de-escalation tool. When tempers rise, words are rarely chosen carefully. By staying quiet, you create space for emotions to cool and for logic to return. This kind of silence isn't passive. It's intentional, designed to protect the relationship or situation from spiraling further. You're not avoiding the issue, you're choosing the right moment to address it. Philosophically, this mirrors the Stoic belief that control over one's emotions is a form of ultimate strength. The Stoics taught that not every provocation deserves a reaction, and not every situation requires your voice. Silence is the embodiment of that discipline. It allows you to stand firm without being drawn into chaos. Marcus Aurelius wrote about the value of remaining the same in the face of provocation. Silence is one way to embody that steadiness. Silence also works when you want your absence to be felt. Sometimes stepping back, whether from a conversation, a meeting, or even a relationship, communicates more than constant engagement ever could. It can be a signal that you won't tolerate certain behavior, that you're drawing a line, or that you're allowing others to sit with the consequences of their actions. In these moments, the absence of your voice becomes a mirror in which others are forced to see themselves. But here's the nuance. Silence speaks loudest when it's paired with intention. If you stay silent out of fear, avoidance, or uncertainty, it can be mistaken for weakness. If you stay silent out of choice, grounded in self-control, it's unmistakably powerful. The difference lies in your posture, your timing, and your purpose. In practice, this means reading the room and understanding when your voice would add value, and when it would be better to let quiet do the work. It means being comfortable with letting others sit in discomfort without rescuing them from it. And it means trusting that sometimes the strongest statement you can make is to make none at all. When silence speaks louder, it transforms you into someone who doesn't need to compete for attention, someone whose presence alone carries weight. And in a world addicted to noise, that kind of presence is magnetic. People may not remember exactly what you said, but they'll remember the moment you said nothing, and the message it sent will echo far beyond the silence itself. Blending silence with body language. Silence on its own is powerful, but when combined with intentional body language, it becomes a force that can command respect, project authority, and communicate volumes without a single word. In many situations, what people remember isn't just what you said. It's how you carried yourself while saying it, or even while saying nothing at all. Your posture, your facial expressions, your eye contact, and even the way you hold your hands can reinforce or completely transform the message your silence sends. When you're silent, people naturally shift their attention to other cues to interpret your intent. This is where body language becomes your ally, or your undoing. Imagine staying quiet during a meeting, but slouching in your chair, avoiding eye contact, and fidgeting nervously. That silence will read as insecurity or disengagement. Now imagine the same silence, but you're sitting upright, shoulders back, maintaining calm, steady eye contact, and offering a slight, knowing smile. Suddenly your silence speaks of confidence, control, and unshakable presence. The same lack of words sends a completely different message because of the physical signals attached to it. Blending silence with body language is about alignment. Every physical cue you send should reinforce the message you want your quiet to convey. If your goal is to project authority, keep your movements slow and deliberate, your posture open but strong, and your eye contact steady without being confrontational. If you want to communicate empathy, soften your facial expressions, lean slightly forward, and nod occasionally to show engagement. Silence doesn't have to be cold. It can be warm, commanding, or even comforting depending on how you pair it with your physical presence. From a strategic standpoint, this combination is incredibly useful in negotiations, leadership, and conflict resolution. In negotiations, a well-timed pause paired with calm, composed body language can make the other party second-guess their position. In leadership, maintaining composed silence during heated discussions can signal that you're assessing the situation carefully rather than reacting emotionally. In conflict resolution, silent presence combined with an open stance can diffuse tension without a single word. Philosophically, this approach echoes the Stoic principle of self-mastery. The Stoics taught that control over your outward reactions is as important as control over your inner thoughts. Blending silence with deliberate body language is an external display of that mastery. It's choosing not just what you will say, but how you will appear while not saying it. It's a reminder that communication is as much about perception as it is about words. The key to mastering this skill is awareness. Pay attention to your default body language when you're silent. Do you cross your arms defensively? Do you glance away too quickly? Do you unconsciously frown? These small cues can completely change how your silence is interpreted. By practicing more intentional physical presence through role play, video recording yourself, or mindful observation, you can train your body language to work in harmony with your strategic silences. When done well, blending silence with body language turns you into someone others take seriously without needing to speak constantly. People will feel your presence, sense your confidence, and respect your restraint. In many cases, they'll even assign more depth and intelligence to your words when you finally choose to speak, because your silence, reinforced by your physical composure, has already told them you are someone worth listening to. And that is the ultimate power of this combination. It allows you to shape the way people perceive you without saying a single word, making your eventual words resonate even more. In a world drowning in noise, this is how you become unforgettable, not by speaking the loudest, but by mastering the art of saying the most without speaking at all. In a world that rewards noise, the quiet ones hold a secret advantage. Silence is not emptiness, it's space. Space for you to think before you act, space to protect what matters, and space to let your actions speak so loudly they can't be ignored. Every principle we've explored, mystery, control, restraint, listening, guarding your energy, comes down to this truth. You do not owe the world constant access to your life. When you speak less, you take back control. You free yourself from the weight of unnecessary opinions, from the traps of envy and resistance, from the exhaustion of defending every choice. You move on your own terms, at your own pace, and in your own way. And when the time comes to reveal what you've built, you do so from a place of strength, not need. Silence is not hiding, it's building, it's preparing, it's protecting the most important work you'll ever do. The work of becoming the person you want to be, without letting the world shape you before you're ready. And when your results speak, they won't just tell your story. They'll tell the story of someone who had the discipline to wait, the wisdom to listen, and the courage to move quietly until it was time to be heard. So take this as your reminder. You don't need to explain yourself to everyone. You don't need to announce every move. You don't need the world's permission to live your life. Protect your plans. Guard your peace. Let your silence sharpen your presence. And when you do speak, let it be with the force of someone who has nothing to prove, because your life already speaks for itself.